Section 41 of All About Coffee. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit Librivox.org. All About Coffee by William Ukers. Chapter 27. Retail Merchandising of Roasted Coffee. How coffees are sold at retail, the place of the grocer, the coffee and tea dealer, the chain store, and the wagon route distributor in the scheme of distribution, starting in the retail coffee business, small roasters for retail dealers, model coffee departments, creating a coffee trade, meeting competition, splitting nickels, figuring costs and profits, a credit policy for retailers, premiums. Coffee is sold at retail in the United States through 7 distinct channels of trade. The independent retail grocers, about 350,000, handling about 40% of the 1.3 billion pounds sold annually, and the other 60% being sold by chain stores, mail-order houses, house-to-house wagon route distributors, specialty tea and coffee stores, department stores, and drug stores. Since the beginning of the 20th century, the independent grocer's monopoly in retail coffee merchandising has been dwindling at a rate that has seriously alarmed those interests and their friends. B.C. Casanis of New Orleans, addressing a convention of the National Association of Retail Grocers in the United States in 1916, said that the wholesale coffee roasters of the country had invested in their business $60 million, and that $135 million worth of roasted coffee was sold by them every year. Considering the methods of merchandising, the 7 retail distributing agencies may be grouped into 3 distinct classes. The first class would comprise the independent grocer, the chain store, the department store, the drug store, and the specialty store, all of which maintain stores where the consumer comes to buy. The second class takes the mail-order house, which solicits orders and delivers its coffee by mail, and sometimes by freight or express. The third class covers the wagon route dealer, who goes from house to house seeking trade and delivers his coffee on order at regular periods direct to the consumer in the home. As an inducement to contracting for large quantities to be delivered in weekly or biweekly periods, the house-to-house dealer generally gives some household article, or the like, as a premium to establish goodwill and to retain the trade of his customers. New impetus was given to the method of selling coffee by mail when the parcel post system was adopted by the federal government in 1912, and since then, this plan has become an important factor in retail coffee merchandising. Generally, the mail-order houses confine their sales efforts to agricultural districts and small towns, soliciting trade by catalogs, by circular letters, and by advertisements in local newspapers and in magazines, which circulate chiefly among dwellers in rural districts. The majority of wagon route distributors depend on the lure of their premiums and on personal calls to develop and to hold their coffee trade. The leading wagon route companies, sometimes called premium houses, maintain offices and plants in large cities adjacent to the territories to which they confine their sales efforts. At strategic points, they have district agents who engage the wagon men that do the actual soliciting of orders and that deliver the coffee. All wagon route companies handle other products besides coffee, specializing in tea, spices, extracts, and such household goods as soap, perfumes, and other toilet requisites that promise a quick sale and frequent reorders. Some of their competitors complain that they handle only more profitable lines, leaving the independent local grocer to supply the housekeeper with the items on which the margin of profit is comparatively small. Wagon route coffee retailing began to make itself felt seriously about the year 1900. At first, the premiums usually consisted of a cup and saucer with the first order, the customer being led to continue buying until at least a full set of dishes had been acquired. Later, the range of premiums was expanded. Until today, the wagon man offers several hundred different articles that can be used in the home or for personal wear or adornment. Practically all the leading wagon route concerns favor the advanced premium method. That is, a special canvasser induces a consumer to contract for a large quantity of coffee and other products in return for receiving the premium at once, though the coffee is delivered only as the customer wants it, generally 2 pounds every 2 weeks. The wagon man delivers the coffee and is usually held responsible for the customer fulfilling the agreement and is expected to secure repeat orders with other premiums. The importance of the wagon route plan of coffee retailing is shown by the fact that in 1921, there were 600 houses of this kind in the United States, and it was estimated that they distributed 8% of the total amount of the coffee consumed in the country. The biggest company was capitalized at $16 million and operated 1,100 wagons. Most of the wagon route concerns were operating in the central states, practically 1/3 of them covering the states of Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Iowa. Pennsylvania is also a wagon route dealer center. The premium wagon route distributors have an organization called the National Retail Tea and Coffee Merchants Association. It is comprised of 126 members, all of whom use premiums, who operate over 2,000 wagons. The largest single wagon route operator is the Jewel Tea Company of Chicago. The members of this organization claim to have served more than 2 million families in 1920. In the chain store system of merchandising, we see the opposite extreme of coffee retailing. The wagon route man features his delivery service, while in the chain store plan, all customers must pay cash and carry home their parcels. Though the earliest established chain stores gave premiums, the practice now has been generally abandoned. Roasting, blending, and packing coffee in a large central plant, the chain store operator advertises that he can sell coffee at a lower price than his competitors. As a rule, only one grade of coffee is offered for sale. While it is generally a good medium value, many consumers prefer better quality and go to the independent grocer for it. Others patronize the grocer because of his convenient delivery service and because he gives credit on purchases. Chain store organizations seem to be growing rapidly, however. The largest of the chains, the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, reporting in 1921 that it had nearly 5,000 branches throughout the country, which sell 40 million pounds of coffee annually. This chain has a capitalization of $12 million, and in 1920 sold $225 million worth of groceries, as compared with $154,718,124 in the preceding year. This company opens about 500 new stores every year. The chain store men are organized in the National Chain Store Grocers Association, having 30 members representing 12,000 stores operating in 18 states. It is estimated that there are 50 responsible chain store grocery organizations in the United States, representing about 30,000 stores. The chain store grocer turns his stock over from 12 to 25 times a year, sells for cash, makes no deliveries, and claims to save the consumer an average of 15% in buying. These stores do business on a net margin, not exceeding 3% on sales, as against the average retail grocer's 30%, while their average gross cost of doing business has been stated as between 13.5% lowest and 18.5% highest. According to Alfred H. Beckman, Secretary-Treasurer of the National Chain of Grocers Association, public appreciation of the chain grocery store is rapidly growing. 10 years ago, it was estimated that chain stores in what is known as the Metropolitan District of New York did about 12.5% of the volume of business in their line, while today it is estimated at about 50%. It is estimated that the 50-odd chain store organizations in the United States distribute through their 30,000 stores 270 million pounds of coffee a year, or about 20% of the total amount consumed in the United States. Starting in the retail coffee business. When taking up the retail merchandising of coffee, the practical grocer learns all he can about the popular grades to be had in the principal markets, and how coffees are grown, roasted, blended, and ground. He also ascertains the best methods of brewing, testing out each grade and kind on his own table if he does not have testing facilities in his store. He studies the relative trade values of different varieties of coffee and the requirements of his particular clientele. An interesting analysis of some 250 grocery stores in the United States, made in 1919, showed that 29% of the dealers bought all their coffee from wholesale grocers, 48% exclusively from roasters and specialty wholesalers, 10% got over one-half of their coffee from wholesale grocers, and 13% bought less than one-half from wholesale grocery houses. There are two fundamental plans on which a retailer builds a successful coffee business: by buying coffee already roasted and by buying it green and roasting it in the store. Each plan has its advantages, but its practicability depends upon conditions in different localities. Beyond acquiring a general talking knowledge about coffees, the retailer buying his stocks roasted in bulk or package form does not generally need the intimate knowledge of his goods required by the grocer who roasts his own coffee. If he grinds the coffee for his customers, he must know the type of grind best suited to the way the coffee is to be brewed, and must be able to tell the best brewing method. The practical grocer who makes up his own blend is acquainted with blending principles and methods. While he cannot expect to be as expert as the large wholesale blender, he should know that green coffees are generally classified by blenders in 5 great divisions. 1. Brazils, including Santos, Bourbon and Flat Bean, Rios, Victorias, and Bahias. 2. Washed milds, embracing, as of the most commercial value, Bogotas, Bucaramangas, Guatemalas, Mexicans, Costa Ricans, Maracaibos, and Meridas. 3. Unwashed milds, such as Maracaibos, Bucaramangas, Laguarias, and Mexicans. 4. Javas, Sumatras, and Padong. 5. Mocha and Harari. Applying the specialist idea to coffee merchandising. The Pacific Stores Company, Los Angeles, cutting out deliveries, premiums, and solicitors, has built up a business of more than 100 bags of coffee daily, selling direct to the consumer in a chain of 100 booths patterned after the country roadside gasoline stations, each one having its own roaster. It has been found by experience that a good assortment for the average retailer to carry consists of Santos because of price, or natural unwashed Maracaibo, or Bucaramanga because of full body and general blending values, and a washed coffee, preferably a Bogota, which gives quality and character to a blend. In stocking up with these coffees, the practical merchant avoids Santos with a strong or Rioi flavor, bitter or Haiti Maracaibos, and acidy or thin Bogotas. A grocer equipped with these coffees has the Santos for his low-priced seller. For his medium grade, he blends Santos and Maracaibo half and half. The next higher grade is made up of 1/3 of each of the 3 coffees, while the best blend consists of either half and half Bogota and Maracaibo, or 3/4 Bogota and 1/4 Maracaibo. The chief advantage of these 3 coffees is that they blend well in any way they are mixed, and the dealer, with a little experience, and working with the 2 necessary ideas in mind, satisfactory coffee and price, can make up various combinations. In view of the fact that the United States imports coffee from more than 100 different sections of the world, and that there are wide variations in flavor among the coffees produced in each of the 100, it is easy to understand that the blender has an almost unlimited supply from which to make up a blend with a distinctive individuality. Practically all coffee importers and most wholesalers are thoroughly acquainted with the relative trade values of the different coffees and help their customers make up desirable blends. While the wholesale coffee roaster is obliged to install a large and somewhat complex equipment, the retailer must use a small, compact, self-contained unit that does not take up much space in his store and that is easily operated. Retail roasting machines are constructed on the same general principle as the wholesale roaster. The roasting cylinder is generally revolved by electric power, and the heat is derived from gas or gasoline fuel. Cooling is by air suction in a box attached to the roaster. The capacities of the machines range from 10 to 300 pounds. the operating cost running from approximately 8 cents per 100 pounds for gas fuel and 10 cents for electric power. The roasters cost from $300 for the smaller sizes to $1,500 for the one-bag type and to $2,000 or $3,000 for the two-bag type. One coffee roaster machinery manufacturer has recently brought out a gas-fired, electricity-operated, 50-pound miniature coffee roasting plant designed for retail stores, which comprise a roaster, a rotary cooler, and a stoning device that sells for $650. Retail coffee roasting is similar to the wholesale operation. When the cylinder has become heated, the green coffee is run in and allowed to roast in the revolving cylinder for about half an hour. If the coffee is the average green kind, the full heat may be applied at once, but if old and dry, a lesser degree is used. When the roast begins to snap, the flame is turned lower to allow the beans to cook through evenly, and when nearly done, it is almost extinguished. During the operation, the roasterman, who may be the proprietor or a clerk delegated to work frequently, samples the coffee by taking out small quantity with his trier and comparing the color of the roast with a type sample. When the colors match exactly, the coffee is dumped automatically into the cooler box just below the cylinder opening, and when sufficiently cooled off, is ready for grinding to order. A large number of retailers roast coffee in their stores, and the most successful find that besides being able to make a feature of freshly roasted coffee, they can save money and increase their sales. One progressive grocer found that he was able to get 88 pounds of roasted coffee out of 100 pounds of green coffee, as compared with the wholesaler's 84 pounds, that he could buy green coffee at a closer price than roasted, and that it cost him less for labor, fuel, overhead, and similar items than it did for the wholesale roaster to turn out a roast. A chain of coffee specialty stores, in which the coffee is roasted fresh every day, was started in California about the year 1916, and according to reports, it was met with almost instant success. In this system, the proprietor buys the green coffee in large quantities, and it is roasted in each of the specialty stores, which are located in public markets, store windows, and alongside heavily traveled highways. The roasting machinery is invariably set up in front of the store, where passers-by can easily see it in operation, and also smell the coffee roasting. 4 years after starting the first store, there were 50 in operation along the Pacific coast, doing an annual business of about $600,000, some units taking in more than $7,000 a month. Model coffee departments. Authorities generally agree that a well-laid-out coffee department not only increases a grocer's coffee business, but speeds up sales in other departments as well. Coffee lovers, and they are legion in the United States, are inclined to shop around for coffee that suits their taste. And when they have found the store that sells it, they buy their other groceries there also. Another argument advanced in favor of a coffee department is that coffee pays more money into the retailer's cash drawer than any other grocery item. Most successful retail coffee merchandisers establish the coffee department near the entrance to the store, where it can be seen through a window by passerby, especially if there is an ornamental roasting and grinding equipment. It has been found that a department situated at the left of the entrance is almost certain to draw attention because people are inclined to glance in that direction first. Some merchants having the space erect attractive booths designed somewhat like the familiar food show booths directly in front of the door, after the fashion of department stores, when holding a special sale on a certain article. Such a booth is generally used for demonstration purposes and is decorated with signs and possibly with bunting. A permanent department is usually less ornamental, but still attractive. In telling how he made a success of his department, one American grocer said that he was careful that his fixtures were not so ornamental as to draw attention from the goods. While the decorations were always attractive, they were subordinated sufficiently to form a background for his coffee display. The most popular layout is the conventional counter system, behind which the clerk stands to serve the customers on the other side. There are many advocates of the counter that is built into the shelving believing that the closer the customers are brought to the coffee, the more they will be inclined to buy. This system also makes for cleanliness, doing away with the possibility of the runway behind the counter becoming a catch-all for dirt, torn paper, bits of wood, and the like. The modern coffee department has counters divided into compartments having glass fronts. This type serves both as a storage place for coffee and for display purposes. The top of the counter is used for wrapping up parcels, etc., and also for displaying bulk and packaged coffees. In the well-regulated store, the countertop is never used for storage, all stock being kept on shelves or in the counter's compartments. Good merchants find that cleanliness pays, and that a littered-up store drives away desirable custom. The wise proprietor never allows a clerk to weigh out the coffee after handling cheese, onions, and other odorous articles without first thoroughly washing his hands. He knows that few food products in his store will more quickly absorb undesirable odors and flavors than coffee, and consequently, he is careful to protect his coffee from contamination. In the better stores, the proprietor will either take charge of the coffee department himself or will delegate a competent man who will do nothing else. The wide-awake retail coffee roaster always features his roasting machine, which is generally highly ornamental and draws attention even when not in use. Some progressive merchants plan to roast coffee at noontime and at night when homeward-bound passerby are hungry and are particularly susceptible to the pungent aroma of roasting coffee. It is a quite common plan for the retail roaster to arrange the exhaust of the machine so that the full strength of the odor is blown into the street. Creating a coffee trade. Because of steady sales and quick profits, there is a keener competition in retail coffee merchandising than in other food products. But, all things being equal, any intelligent person can create and hold a profitable trade if he allows approved business methods and works. The best practice among coffee merchants shows that the prime essential is good coffee, freshly roasted and ground. After that comes intelligent and unremitting sales promotion work. The many ingenious trade-building plans worked out successfully by grocers in all parts of the country are too numerous to describe in a book of this character, but the methods cited in the following, all of which have been tested in actual working conditions, will serve to indicate the fundamentals of good retail coffee sales promotion. Among the chief sales-winning methods are demonstrations in the store, at local food shows, and at church socials, picnic functions, judicious sampling, either in person or by mail, personal canvassing from house to house, circularizing by mail, linking up window displays with current happenings, local newspaper and outdoor poster advertising, and selling coffee by telephone. Most of the foregoing plans are worked intermittently. The telephone, however, is a most important sales factor and should be employed constantly and consistently. Many successful stores consider the telephone, properly used, the greatest single sales help in retail coffee merchandising. One grocer had such faith in this method that he paid half the annual telephone rental for the large number of his best-paying customers. Another large merchandiser put an individual telephone for each of his salesmen who called up his regular customers each day to suggest articles for that day's order, always, of course, mentioning their superior brand of coffee. Telephoning is the next step to personal contact and, if tactfully done, is considered to be even more advantageous because of the time it saves both the customer and the storekeeper. Coffee demonstrations in stores are easily arranged in most cases. The main consideration is fresh coffee in good quality, served daintily and hot. Lacking a coffee urn, some grocers make their brews in large-size home-service coffee-making devices. Those most advanced in the correct method of brewing use the drip process. It is generally agreed that demonstrations should not be held too often. They not only cut into profits, but lose much of their advertising value. Food show demonstrations require more elaborate equipment, consisting of a decorated booth, educational booklets, posters, and exhibits of different kinds of coffee, both green and roasted, whole bean, and ground. Generally, Coffee packers cooperate with retail demonstrators by supplying gratis the coffee to be brewed. If the names of their brands are suitably displayed, they supply also posters, signs, samples for free distribution. Window displays form one of the best means of advertising at the command of the average grocer and of one of the least expensive. A popular coffee display consists of a series of educational windows, starting with green beans in the bags in which they are shipped from the growing country. Generally, the bags, mats, or bundles are obtained from the wholesale house and are filled almost to the top with some inexpensive stuffing, the green coffee being spread over the top to give the appearance of a full bag. Pictures showing how the coffee is grown, harvested, prepared, and shipped are frequently used in such a display. The next exhibit consists of whole roasted coffee spread thickly over the window floor to create the impression of bulk, accompanied by a few pans of green coffee by way of contrast, and with pictures showing scenes in coffee roasting plants. A barrel lined with blue paper and lying on its side with roasted coffee beans spilling out serves as a centerpiece for such a display. Following this comes a coffee package window, accompanied by pictures showing how coffee is roasted, ground, and packed. This completes the series, but there are many variations that have proved successful as trade builders. Meeting competition. Since the advent of the wagon route distributor and the chain store, the independent retail grocer has been faced with the problem of how to regain at least a fair measure of the coffee trade he has lost. The grocer is not only concerned about his profits on coffee sales, but on other goods as well. For a trade investigation has shown that a large percentage of the regular customers of the retailer are held to the store by their purchases of coffee and tea. This means that if coffees and teas are bought from the wagon route distributor and the chain store, the balance of a family's order is shopped around. To meet this competition, the best authorities agree that the independent grocer should feature coffee in every practical way, such as soliciting coffee trade from each customer that enters the store, give up offering coffee on a price basis, and make up his own blends from good quality growth. Perhaps make up his own brand and push it at every opportunity, display coffee artistically with frequent changes of layouts, and have occasional store demonstrations. He should see that the coffee is roasted properly and that it is always fresh, that the selling effort is not expended on the lowest priced blend, but on a grade that can be recommended for cup merit. This should be a leader, but a lower price coffee could be carried to suit the trade that buys on price. Persistent efforts should be made to educate the last named class of customers to use the better grades, which in the end are cheaper and give better satisfaction. In short, the grocer should work consistently to establish a vogue for his leader blend on the basis of merit. Profits and costs. Because of its influence on other grocery items, coffee can often be sold at a close margin of profit, particularly if a competitor's store or wagons are cutting into a grocer's neighborhood trade. 25% is recommended as a reasonable gross profit on coffee in most cases, although some grocers make less, and not a few make more, the range being usually from 20 to 39%. The independent dealer should meet chain store competition in coffee on a price basis, making a special on superior grade and figuring to get not more than 3 cents profit per pound, like his competitor. A bag of roasted coffee will bring back $3 gain and the cash to pay for another, and the grocer has kept his customers, 90% of whom, theoretically, will have bought their other food supplies from him. As a matter of fact, in the last year of the World War, retailers showed a tendency to demand cash on sales of all grocery items. This practice reduces the cost of operation and allows the storekeeper to reduce his prices. A large number of grocers charge a small percentage of the total sale for credit privileges and 5 or 10 cents for each delivery below a certain total value of the purchase price of the articles to be delivered. As a result, they have been able to meet chain store competition. Collective buying has also been a factor in offsetting the inroads of the chains. Splitting nickels. One of the reasons advanced for the loss of coffee trade by retail grocers is that they price their blends in round numbers, that is 20, 25, 30, or 40 cents, while their competitors split nickels, selling their product at 18, 23, 28, or 38 cents. Most of the retail enterprises in other lines of trade have built up their business on the penny change plan, and many coffeemen believe this should become the universal merchandising method among retail distributors of coffee. One of the leading advocates of splitting nickels has worked out a chart to show how coffee should be priced to make predetermined profits, figuring costs and profits. While the cost of conducting a retail grocery business naturally varies according to local conditions and the size of the enterprise, an investigation among some 250 stores in small and large cities made in 1919 by the Bureau of Business Research, Harvard University, showed that the average cost was 14% and that the net profit averaged 2 3/10%, and that stock was turned about 7 times a year. Gross profits ran from 10.5% to 26 4/100% of the net sales, the most typical figure being 16 9/10%. Sales costs formed the largest single item of expense, varying from 3 41/100ths to 9 94/100%, with the bulk of figures showing around 1 8/10%. According to advanced business practice, the cost of doing business should be based on these 14 points. 1. Charge interest on the net amount of the total investment at the beginning of the business year, exclusive of real estate. 2. Charge rental on real estate or buildings at a rate equal to that which would be received if renting or leasing to others. 3. Charge, in addition to what is paid for hired help, an amount equal to what the proprietor's services would be worth to others. Also treat in the manner the services of any member of the family employed in the business and not on the regular payroll. 4. Charge depreciation on all goods carried over on which a less price may have to be made because of damage or any other cause. 5. Charge depreciation on buildings, tools, fixtures, or anything else suffering from age or wear and tear. 6. Charge donations and subscriptions paid. 7. Charge all fixed expenses such as taxes, insurance, water, lights, fuel, etc. 8. Charge all incidental expenses such as drayage, postage, office supplies, livery expenses of horses and wagons, telegrams and telephones, advertising, canvassing, etc. 9. Charge losses of every character, including goods stolen or sent out and not charged, allowances made customers, all debts, etc. 10. Charge collection expenses. 11. Charge any other expense not enumerated above. 12. When it is ascertained what the sum of all the foregoing items amounts to, prove it by the books, which will give the total expense for the year. Divide this figure by the total of sales, and it will show the percent which it has cost to do business. 13. Take this percent and deduct it from the price of any article sold. Then subtract it from the remainder what it costs, invoice price, and freight, and the result will show the net profit or loss on the article. 14. Go over the selling prices of the various articles and see what are profits. Then get busy in putting your selling figures on a profitable basis and talk it over with your competitor as well. A credit policy for retailers. While the minor factors governing a credit policy for retailers vary with local conditions, the fundamental principles are alike everywhere and should have the thoughtful consideration of all retail distributors of coffee. After a retail grocery store experience of 25 years, a past president of the National Association of Retail Grocers of the United States found that a grocer should insist upon references and a thorough investigation of every new applicant for credit, refusing the privilege when the prospective customer hesitates to give the needed information, that he should arrange a date for periodical payments, explaining that this is necessary so that the storekeeper can arrange to meet his own bills, which will enable him to discount his invoices and to sell his goods cheaper, that statements of accounts should be sent out promptly and never a few days late, that he should insist on payment in full when due, requesting the customer to call if an extension of time is asked, that he should not let the customers decide when they will pay bills, bearing in mind that the possible loss of a few customers who do not pay promptly is offset by the advantages of cash when promised, that he should never abandon the hope of collecting an old account, but should try the method of sending statements only to the surest customers, sending a clerk for the collection of all other accounts, that he should personally examine all uncollected accounts every month, insisting on a reason for failure to pay, that he should study his customers and not trust those who give a bad impression, that he should have the courage to say no when necessary, not to be satisfied with merely a financial rating on a credit applicant, but to ascertain his general reputation and character, and to help to eliminate the deadbeats by giving careful attention to all requests received from other retailers for credit information. Premiums for retailers. House-to-house dealers are the largest users of premiums among coffee distributors. Most of them operate under what is known as the advanced premium method. The plan followed by house-to-house dealers until about 1910 was to issue checks redeemable in premiums after a certain amount of tea, coffee, or other products had been purchased. This practice has not been entirely abandoned, but in most instances, the premium is now handed to the consumer in advance of the initial purchase, in consideration of the buyer's promise to use a stipulated quantity of tea, coffee, or other merchandise. The driver of the wagon generally carries a portfolio illustrating numerous premium items redeemable through the purchase of varying amounts of merchandise. Many retail coffee stores also employ premiums using both the old style and advanced methods. This type of store, however, is being supplanted by chain grocery store. Some independent retail grocers use premiums to a limited extent. These usually carry a small line of premiums featuring a piece of kitchenware or other inexpensive items with bulk coffee. It is significant that one of the largest chain store organizations in the United States, the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, uses few premiums today, although its business was founded on the premium idea. Trading stamps, which are sold to grocers and other merchants by firms making a specialty of this form of premium giving, are little used nowadays. The average retail grocer is antagonistic to trading stamps as a result of the methods of certain unscrupulous stamp dealers. Legislation against trading stamps is in effect in many states. End of section 41. Read by Kimberly Bonin.